Hello, Professor Jorge. This is Dakota Jalila and John Casala doing our presentation on the Mexican-American War. This is a period of history through which there was great tension between Mexico and America and a fight for territorial control throughout the Southwest territories that were held by Mexico, and the United States had great interest in these territories along with its economic, religious, and political value through both of their economies. Let's begin.
The armed conflict between Mexico and the United States began in 1846 and ended in 1848. The United States president during this time period was James K. Polk, and the cause of this war was the U.S.'s annexation of Texas, along with America's desires for California and other Mexican territories, including New Mexico. America invaded from three separate fronts. They came through the north, through Texas, the east through Veracruz, and the west through California and New Mexico. James K. Polk sent General Stephen Kearny west from Leavenworth. 1,700 men invaded and held present-day California and New Mexico. While this was going on, Alexander Doniphan went south with a large contingent to eventually capture Chihuahua.
This is where General Taylor's invasion comes in. Now, General Taylor's invasion was very unique. There's never been a point in history where an army was in another country's territory even before hostilities broke out. This means that the American army under General Taylor's control was already in Mexico when the United States decided to involve itself in a war with Mexico. Now, the Mexicans had a large army on the border as well. I was reading of some 3,000 to 4,000 Mexican troops were on the border ahead, trying to rout Taylor's army before that it could plunge itself deep inside Mexico's territory. But eventually Taylor routed the army twice, which means that he sort of almost ran away from the Mexican army until he found a battlefield that best suited his military style, which was eventually at the Battle of Palo Alto. His army was defeated by superior artillery fire that the Americans were better trained at. Although the Mexican army claimed to have better man-to-man, hand-to-hand combat soldiers, the American artillery proved too much for the Mexican armies under various Mexican generals' control. General Scott's invasion was the best way to reach New Mexico City through the Atlantic port of Veracruz. This means it was the most direct route to the city. It was the fastest way to travel mile-wise and through the rough terrain through Mexico at the time. And after a short siege, the city surrendered in March of 1847. General Scott then marched inland and defeated Santa Anna, a very, very famous Mexican general who was immortalized at the Battle of Alamo. He was defeated by Scott at Cerro Gordo. After hostilities kind of came to an end during this war, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was signed. Mexico in this treaty was forced to sign over a vast amount of land, including California, Utah, Nevada, New Mexico, and parts of Arizona, Wyoming, and Colorado. Now, this is a huge chunk of territory seceded by Mexico to the U.S. And to put it in perspective, the Louisiana territory purchased by the United States, it was purchased for $1.5 billion. This was easily 3/4 as much as that land, and it was only given to the United States or taken from the United States from Mexico for $15 million and $3 million in other seceded money to provide whatever costs that Mexico lost during this transaction, but it really did not equal the amount of money that they would end up losing for this territory. And future disagreements between Mexico and the U.S. would be solved by diplomacy. They saw that they were going to border each other for a long time. They didn't see any foreign invaders disrupting their country, so they knew that peace between these two countries, these two powerhouses at the time, or superpowers of the world, would be ideal for future prospering throughout their countries. That is the end of our side. Thank you, Professor Masfud, and have a great night.